I never imagined I'd feel invisible in my own family, but here I am, Eliza Webb, 33 years old, a certified public accountant with 10 years tucked under my belt. Numbers have always been my refuge, the place where I hold firm control while the chaos of family drama swirls around me. I'm the one who quietly manages the bills, balances the loans, and keeps the family afloat when no one else seems to notice. Last Christmas, I covered nearly $2,000 out of my own pocket for Lisa's surprise wedding shower, a party that everyone enjoyed but no one thanked me for. Allison Simpson, my mother-in-law, watches it all with cold eyes, never missing a chance to question how I handle money. "Why don't you do more for family events?" she'd say with that sharp, clipped tone, like she's the queen dispensing judgment. Her words sting deeper than she knows, eroding my confidence bit by bit. The tension with Allison simmers beneath every family gathering, a slow burn I try to ignore. I choose hope over suspicion, telling myself that maybe one day, someone will see the value in what I do. What no one knows is the secret I carry quietly in my heart, a house I bought years ago with my own savings. It's a silent testament to all my sacrifices, a fortress in my name that no one suspects exists. I haven't dared to use it yet. Maybe someday it could be my way out, or maybe a weapon to reclaim my dignity. But for now, I keep trying to keep the peace, to hold the family together even as the cracks widen around me. It's exhausting, and sometimes I wonder if the price I pay is worth the invisible role I'm forced to play. Growing up, there was always a golden child in our family, my sister Lisa. I remember being 14, wide-eyed and naive, when my parents started charging me $300 a month rent for my room. They called it life lessons, a way to teach responsibility, but Lisa never had to pay a dime. At family dinners, my mom would lavish praise on Lisa's carefree spirit, while subtly blaming me for being too sensitive about money. I swallowed those words like bitter pills, convincing myself it was tough love meant to prepare me for adulthood. But there's one memory that still stings. My 16th birthday, when I asked Mom why I had to pay rent and Lisa didn't. She snapped back, sharp and cold, "You need to learn responsibility. Lisa's path is different." Her words cut deeper than she knew. I swallowed my hurt, kept paying that rent, believing it was for my own good. Looking back, it was favoritism disguised as discipline, financial exploitation wrapped in a lesson I never signed up for. It shaped how I saw family loyalty. Always giving, never receiving. The sacrifices I made didn't end there. Over the years, I quietly funneled thousands of dollars into family expenses. That $300 a month rent from age 14 until I left for college adds up to over $47,000, a sum I never got back. In my 20s, I sent $500 checks regularly to cover utilities and groceries, patched up leaky pipes and broken appliances without a second thought. Twice, I canceled vacations I desperately needed to lend money for Lisa's wedding and Allison's surprise birthday party. Daniel, my husband, started noticing. One evening, his voice was gentle but firm. "Eliza, you're giving too much and getting nothing back." I looked at him, hope flickering in my chest, believing if I just kept proving my worth, the family would finally recognize me. The house I own stands like a silent ledger of my contributions, a fortress built from my sweat and sacrifice. Daniel supports me quietly, his steady presence my only anchor. But Allison's constant criticism leaves me doubting myself, wondering if I'm just a fool trapped in a family that drains me dry. The cast is set. Allison, the parasitic queen, Daniel, my steady ally, Lisa, caught in the middle, and my mother Margaret, whose passivity only enables Allison's control. Then came the first public humiliation, at Lisa's bridal shower no less. The room was filled with family and friends, the air thick with anticipation and laughter. Allison's voice sliced through it, cold and deliberate. Eliza's always pinching pennies. No wonder she never throws a proper party. The room froze for a heartbeat. Awkward glances, a few nervous chuckles. My face flamed with heat, a mix of shame and hurt twisting deep inside. I wanted to snap back, to defend myself, but my voice caught in my throat. Instead, I muttered something about Allison being stressed and quietly slipped away to the kitchen. I told myself it was a one-time slip, a random jab not worth the fight, but the seed of doubt took root. Was this really the respect I deserved after all I've done? Still, I held back, refusing to show Allison the wound she'd inflicted. Leaving the room quietly was my first crack of backbone, a silent message that I wouldn't take everything lying down, but it was just the beginning of a long, painful dance between submission and defiance. Allison didn't miss my quiet pushback. The very next week, her counterattack began. Whispers floated through the family like poisoned darts. At a casual lunch, I overheard Allison telling Margaret, her voice silky and sharp, "Eliza's just too sensitive. Always overreacting, wanting everything her way." The words stung, but worse was the way family members started to shift. People I once trusted began avoiding me, their eyes flickering with a strange mix of pity and suspicion. Daniel's uncle, usually warm and steady, pulled Daniel aside with a subtle warning. "Make sure Eliza doesn't get out of line." It felt like a command disguised as concern, and it made my chest tighten. Even Lisa, my own sister, repeated Allison's criticisms without realizing the sting beneath them. "Maybe you are a bit controlling, Eliza. Allison just wants what's best." Hearing those words from her felt like betrayal. Allison's gaslighting was relentless. When I confronted her quietly, hoping to clear the air, she smiled with that cruel calm and said, "You're imagining things. You've always been difficult to please." The certainty in her tone made me question my own reality. Was I truly the problem? Some nights I lay awake, replaying conversations, doubting my instincts. Daniel noticed my despair growing like a shadow. One evening he took my hand and said gently, "Don't believe the whispers, Eliza. They don't know the whole story." But Allison's network tightened like a noose. I felt trapped in a web spun from half-truths and lies, the parasitic queen asserting her reign with cold precision. This wasn't just a family spat anymore. It was a war of control, and I was losing ground fast. Determined to stop the bleeding, I requested a family meeting. The day of the gathering, I sat across from Allison and Margaret, my hands folded tightly in my lap. I spoke calmly, carefully laying out the facts, the financial contributions I'd made over the years, the sacrifices no one saw, my feelings of being undermined and dismissed. Allison's response was a practiced performance. Tears welled in her eyes, and her voice cracked with fabricated vulnerability. "You're tearing this family apart," she accused. "After all I've done for you." Margaret looked away, silent, her discomfort evident, but unspoken. The mediator, my uncle, nodded slowly, then dismissed my concerns as overreactions. His subtle siding with Allison felt like a stab in the back. I left that room crushed, my heart heavier than ever. I had tried reason, empathy, goodwill, and met with manipulation and partiality. The family wasn't ready to hear my truth. Still, I clung to hope, though the cracks in our foundation were widening with every word. Then the second humiliation hit hard and public. At Daniel's company Christmas party, Allison seized the moment. In front of colleagues and friends, she unveiled my secret rent payments like a weapon, declaring with a mocking smile, "Eliza's been paying rent since she was 14, like a little tenant in her own family." Laughter erupted around us. I felt heat flood my face, my stomach twisting in knots. Daniel's jaw clenched tightly beside me, his embarrassment radiating like a physical force. Allison wasn't careless. This was deliberate. She pulled out canceled checks and bank statements she'd found, twisting every number to paint me as stingy and controlling. Daniel confronted her later in a hushed tone, but Allison denied everything with a practiced smirk. The damage was done. Witnesses to the scene included Daniel's boss and several co-workers, their glances sharp and questioning. The humiliation cut deeper this time, striking at not only my family ties but my professional reputation. It wasn't an accident. Allison intended to dismantle me completely, piece by piece. After that, I made one last, desperate attempt to reach across the widening chasm. I offered to help Allison with her upcoming tax filing, hoping to show goodwill despite everything. "Maybe if we work together, things can improve," I said, voice weary but sincere. She accepted the help with a cold smile, making it clear it was a favor, not a truce. When I tried to speak plainly about my feelings, "I need respect, not just money or thanks," she brushed me off with a sharp, "You'll never understand family." The final blow came when she revealed to Margaret her plan to exclude me from the next family inheritance. The words hit me like a fist to the gut. I felt the full weight of rejection, clear, cold, and unyielding. Later that night, I whispered to Daniel, "I did everything I could." The goodwill I'd held onto was gone, replaced by a heavy certainty that some wounds might never heal. The moment Allison started spinning her venomous tales, I felt the air turn thick around me, like a heavy fog that suffocated any warmth I once felt from this family. She painted me as manipulative, emotionally unstable, a burden no one wanted to carry. I overheard snippets. At first, I couldn't believe my ears. My relatives, once friendly, now crossed streets to avoid passing me, their eyes flickering with judgment or pity. Lisa, my own sister, puzzled me most. She'd always been close, but now her words were laced with Allison's poison. "Maybe Allison's right, Eliza. You do take things too hard," she said once, casually dismissing years of shared memories. The rift grew wider, and calls to Margaret, my mother, went unanswered more often. The silence was deafening. Daniel remained my only refuge, his steady presence like a lighthouse in the storm. Yet even with him, the weight of rejection settled deep inside me. I questioned everything: my worth, my motives, the sacrifices I made. Was I truly the problem? One night, curled on the edge of the sofa, I whispered to myself, "Maybe I am the problem." The words tasted bitter, a deep ache curling in my chest. Exhaustion seeped into my bones, a soul-crushing fatigue that made every breath feel like a chore. I felt more like a ghost than a daughter, a sister, a wife, haunted by scars no one else acknowledged. But amid the darkness, a faint ember glimmered. Beneath the weariness, a quiet resolve began to stir, fragile but stubborn. I realized I couldn't keep giving without boundaries, couldn't keep drowning in their dismissals like a silent well. The breaking point wasn't far off. I could feel its shadow looming. Still, I held that ember close, a secret warmth in the chill of isolation, unaware that soon everything would shatter and that ember would become a blaze. The shattering came on my 33rd birthday, a day I expected to be quiet, perhaps even hopeful. Instead, Allison turned the family dinner into a courtroom. With a sickening smile, she declared that the $47,000 of rent I'd paid over the years hadn't been saved for me, as all my silent sacrifices had led me to believe. No, it had been funneled into a hidden account for Lisa's wedding expenses. The words hit like a fist to my gut. I could see Tom, Daniel's father, stiffen beside her, his eyes darting away, unable to meet mine. Allison's voice rang cold. "You should be grateful your sister's wedding was so beautiful. All thanks to your rent." The sentence hung in the air, sharp and unforgiving. The room fell deathly quiet, the betrayal cutting deeper than any insult. I stared at Allison, my mind clearing like ice breaking on a frozen pond. The veil lifted in that moment. I wasn't a fool or a victim anymore. I was a weapon. Years of kindness and sacrifice had been twisted into chains, and the person who took the most from me was suddenly exposed, vulnerable. The hope I'd clung to died, replaced by a cold, ruthless clarity. I would no longer be silent or compliant. Allison had pushed me too far. This was no longer about forgiveness or peace. It was about justice, and I was ready to teach a lesson she'd never forget. That night, alone in my room, the weight of decades crashed down all at once. Memories flooded in, all the unnoticed payments, the whispered criticisms, the humiliations wrapped in false smiles. Anger rose inside me, raw and fierce, but it didn't consume me like a wildfire. It sharpened me like steel forged in fire. I saw clearly now the family script I'd been trapped in, blind to my own worth, blinded by my desire for harmony. The grief was heavy, but beneath it, a hard, cold clarity took root. I wouldn't let this continue. The house I owned, the ledgers I kept, the bank statements I guarded, all became tools in my hands. For the first time, I saw my financial power not as a burden, but as a shield, a weapon, and a promise of justice. Never again, I whispered fiercely into the quiet, a vow burning in my chest. The victim inside me had died that night, replaced by a strategist. I was no longer helpless. I was deliberate, focused, and ready. The next morning, with the weight of that night still heavy but my resolve firm, I sat down with Daniel. I unfolded my plan quietly, letting the words spill out with a calm I hadn't felt in years. "I can't let Allison keep bleeding us dry," I said, voice steady but edged with steel. "It's time to use the facts, the numbers, everything she's tried to hide." Daniel listened, eyes dark with worry but shining with pride. "We'll do this together," he promised, gripping my hand tightly. I pointed out Allison as the root of the family's dysfunction, the source of our financial abuse, and the target of our efforts. Together, we mapped the first steps, gathering every document, bank account, contract, payment record, building an airtight case brick by brick. The plan was clear, measured, nothing dramatic yet. Preparation was key. Daniel warned gently, "This will shake the family, but you're right. It's time." I nodded, feeling the calm before the storm settle inside me. For the first time in a long time, I felt the power of strategy replace the weight of helplessness. The next chapter, whatever it brought, would be mine to write. I sat at the kitchen table late into the night, papers spread before me like a battlefield map. The tangled web of family finances was more complex than I'd imagined. Each line item, every account, revealed layers of dependencies I hadn't fully grasped until now. Allison's grip wasn't just emotional. It extended deep into the money that kept the family afloat. They relied on me for tax advice, loan co-signing, monthly bill payments, and budgeting that kept the household from falling apart. But behind the scenes, Allison's finances were a messy, dangerous secret. I reached out to an old friend, a fellow accountant who owed me favors, and she helped me dig deeper. We unearthed a mountain of hidden debt, over $200,000, buried under false statements and delayed payments. Allison had been juggling unpaid credit cards, business loans, and even tax liens, all masked by her usual charm. Worse, she was siphoning money meant for the family, my money, into a secret account I hadn't known existed. The rent I'd faithfully paid wasn't just disappearing into thin air. It was funding the chaos Allison desperately concealed. I gathered everything. Emails where I'd offered financial advice, bank statements showing transfers I'd made at Allison's insistence, canceled checks for bills no one else paid, and receipts from purchases I'd never questioned. Each piece was a thread tying me to the truth Allison had tried so hard to hide. As I stacked the documents, my chest tightened. Their dependence on me was profound. The family leaned on me more than I'd ever admitted, more than they even realized. And now, I held the undeniable proof of who had carried the burden all these years. For the first time, I felt the quiet power of knowledge. This wasn't just about money or resentment anymore. It was a matter of exposing the truth beneath Allison's carefully constructed facade. I whispered to myself, "They need me more than I need them." The realization was both liberating and terrifying. I wasn't just a financial crutch. I was a force, armed with years of evidence and a resolve that had hardened into steel. The groundwork was laid. I was ready. The days that followed turned into a silent storm of preparation. I updated passwords across every shared account, locking Allison out of the financial controls she'd abused for so long. I revised power of attorney documents, making sure the authority to manage family finances rested squarely where it belonged. Daniel helped discreetly, sitting beside me as I typed emails and made calls to financial advisors and lawyers. To the family, I stayed composed, even cordial, wearing the mask of a calm woman managing routine household matters. Allison noticed nothing, her smug confidence intact as she went about her usual manipulations. Behind the scenes, Daniel and I compiled formal audits, methodically organizing evidence without a hint of the battle brewing beneath the surface. The tension was palpable, but it simmered quietly, like a coiled spring ready to snap. I caught myself holding my breath at moments, sensing the calm before a storm I was carefully orchestrating. Every step was deliberate, every move calculated. I wasn't rushing. I was waiting for the perfect moment. Allison's control was a fragile castle of sand, and I planned to watch it crumble, one grain at a time. At night, when I lay awake, I felt the weight of what I was about to unleash, but I pushed the fear aside. Maintaining the facade of normalcy was crucial, not just for Allison's ignorance, but for my own clarity. If I showed even the smallest crack, everything could unravel prematurely. Daniel's quiet support steadied me. "We're ready," he whispered, holding my hand. I nodded, feeling the cold steel of resolve tighten around my heart. The family had no idea what was coming. Then, in the middle of reviewing Allison's financial records one evening, I found it, an explosive revelation hidden in plain sight. A secret debt exceeding $200,000 spread across unpaid credit cards, business loans, and tax liens. The numbers were staggering, far beyond anything I'd suspected. Allison had been balancing these liabilities by siphoning money from family accounts, manipulating budgets, and fabricating statements. This wasn't just financial irresponsibility. It was a calculated deception meant to hide the full extent of her collapse. The discovery hit me like a freight train. It explained the unexplained shortages, the frantic control Allison exerted over every dollar, and her ruthless insistence on secrecy. Suddenly, everything made sense. The desperation behind her mask, the venom in her words, the way she manipulated family loyalty to cover her tracks. This wasn't just selfishness. It was a dangerous instability threatening the entire family's security. I felt anger and pity swirl inside me, a bitter cocktail that sharpened my focus. Daniel and I sat in stunned silence, the weight of the truth heavy between us. "She's been hiding this from everyone," he said quietly. No wonder she fought so hard to keep control. The moral clarity I'd been searching for crystallized in that moment. This wasn't just about my dignity or repayment anymore. It was about protecting my family from ruin caused by Allison's reckless deception. The stakes had risen, and the upcoming confrontation was no longer just revenge. It was necessary justice. I understood why Allison had resisted transparency so fiercely. Exposure would destroy her. And now? We held the power to bring that destruction to light. I began the first moves quietly, but decisively. The voluntary payments I'd made for years, automatic transfers Allison relied on, were paused without fanfare. I informed family members about the need for a stricter budget, presenting it as a precaution rather than a confrontation. Slowly, cracks appeared. Bills went unpaid, late notices arrived, and Allison's usual manipulative calm started to falter. I sent a formal legal notice demanding full disclosure of all family funds and accounts linked to her. The letter was polite but firm, a clear warning shot fired across her bow. The family noticed the growing tension, though none suspected my hand in it. Daniel watched me with quiet pride, recognizing the transformation from the woman who once bent under pressure to the strategist now steering the course. I maintained my composure, refusing to engage emotionally when Allison tried to bait me. Every move was silent, calculated, and precise. Then came the first tangible consequence, a critical loan payment Allison missed, triggering late fees and official warnings. The pressure was mounting, and the first domino had fallen. I felt a cold satisfaction settling in my bones. Control was shifting, and Allison was on the defensive, scrambling to keep her fragile empire from toppling. But beneath the surface, I stayed calm, knowing this was only the beginning of a reckoning drawn from years of silence and sacrifice. For the first time, I was in control, and the game had irrevocably changed. The room smelled faintly of pine from the holiday decorations, a cruel contrast to the tension thickening the air. I sat at the head of the table, the carefully arranged audit files spread before me like a dam about to break. Allison's usual smirk was nowhere to be seen. Instead, her eyes flickered with unease as I began speaking, voice steady but unyielding. "I've gathered every financial record related to this family," I said, locking eyes with her. "Every dollar I've contributed, every expense hidden from view, and all the secret debts you've tried to bury." I lifted a meticulously organized stack of documents, sliding them toward Daniel, Margaret, and Lisa. "This audit proves who has truly supported this family financially, and who's been exploiting that support for years." Allison's face went pale, her lips trembling as she sputtered denials that rang hollow against the cold, undeniable facts. The silence that followed was suffocating. Margaret's eyes glistened with tears. Lisa's mouth hung open in shock, and Daniel stood firmly by my side, a silent pillar of strength. I spoke with calm finality. From now on, there will be no more financial exploitation. Full transparency is non-negotiable, and restitution for the misused funds must begin immediately. As Allison's carefully crafted facade crumbled, I felt a surge of quiet triumph. This was the moment I reclaimed control, not with anger or threats, but with truth so vivid it could not be ignored. The family's allegiance shifted perceptibly toward me, and for the first time in years, I was no longer the scapegoat. I was the one holding the power. The fallout after that meeting was swift and unrelenting. Allison's carefully maintained image was shattered like glass, and the shards cut deep into her carefully guarded world. Creditors called daily, their voices sharp and impatient, demanding payments Allison could no longer hide from. Family members who had long been silent began to ask questions, seeking explanations she couldn't provide. My phone buzzed relentlessly, messages from Allison begging for mercy, apologies dripping with false sincerity, from distant relatives attempting to mediate, from friends caught in the crossfire. But I held my ground, refusing to soften or reopen old wounds without genuine accountability. Each attempt Allison made to manipulate me, fake tears, hollow promises, desperate pleas, fell flat against the fortress of my resolve. Slowly, others began to see the cracks in Allison's carefully constructed narrative, turning to me for clarity and truth. The family's foundation shifted beneath the weight of the revelations. Allison's reign of control was unraveling, leaving her isolated and exposed to the consequences of her actions. I felt no triumph in her downfall, only a deep, quiet satisfaction knowing justice was unfolding on my terms. I was no longer the victim. I was the architect of a new reality, where honesty and respect would no longer be optional. Allison's desperation reached fever pitch in the weeks that followed. She escalated her efforts to regain control, threatening legal action against me for defamation and accusing me of dividing the family with public accusations. Flying monkeys, distant relatives and mutual acquaintances, were enlisted to pressure Daniel and Margaret, wielding emotional blackmail and casting Allison as the wronged martyr. Her social media accounts became battlegrounds where she painted herself as a victim, betrayed by a greedy daughter-in-law, her posts dripping with false innocence and manipulated sympathy. But I was ready for every move. My evidence was airtight, and my resolve unshaken. Some family members who had wavered began to come forward, offering sincere apologies for doubting me. I listened carefully, accepting their remorse but making it clear that past mistakes would not erase new boundaries. Allison's influence waned with every failed ploy. Her confidence crumbled, replaced by a growing isolation that no act of manipulation could penetrate. The woman who once wielded power like a weapon had lost her grip completely, and no desperate plea or calculated performance could reverse the course. She was defeated, not with violence or malice, but by the truth she had tried so hard to conceal. 6 months later, I find myself in a place I never thought possible. The house I bought years ago, once a symbol of quiet sacrifice, now stands as a testament to resilience and strength. Daniel and I have rebuilt our relationship on trust and mutual respect, establishing clear boundaries that protect us from the toxicity that nearly destroyed us. Allison's financial and social influence has faded to a distant memory, replaced by a family that respects the limits I've set. Contact with Allison is minimal, strictly controlled. No more silent suffering, no more exploitation. Margaret and Lisa maintain a respectful distance, their interactions measured and careful, finally understanding the new dynamics at play. I no longer seek approval or validation from those who never offered it before. This journey has taught me that peace comes not from endless sacrifice, but from self-respect and clear boundaries. I don't miss the oppressive family gatherings or the weight of unacknowledged burdens. Instead, I focus on the future, a future where my value is recognized, my voice is heard, and my well-being is prioritized. The scars from this battle remain, but so does the strength born from them. I am no longer a silent provider or a shadow in my own story. I am a woman in control of her life and her legacy, moving forward with quiet confidence. Respect must be earned, not demanded, and I have finally claimed mine.